and all he had to say, he had to ask the person about his parents, and then he did this. So it's when you get too personal with people, or it's just like an insecure stance that people have when it gets too close, and I see it often at my work where I've also done like controlling visits where I do internal audit in the media company, going to different under companies that report to the group.
So
And
subsidiaries.
but it's just like that kind of transparency. I think, yeah, that openness. I think it goes a long way.
So
That's
you
just my
think,
personal approach.
so do you think that's a fear of criticism? Like a fear
Yeah,
of being wrong, or a fear of you know what I'm saying? Is that what
on
you're
my part or
thinking?
their part or.
Right? And he
Mm,
talks about sort of some of the not so good memories, like some of the things that have happened where they were really bloody outcomes, and Congress got involved and said, "Hey, you need to figure this out." And so they ended up changing their approach. So instead of
yeah.
going in and just talking at people and trying to pigeonhole them and make them fearful, right?
Yeah, I think if you understand each other, um, you might not always agree, and you might find out that you don't agree, and you have to take some sort of confrontation. But I think that a lot of things will go more smoothly if you understand other people and can see it from their perspective. Um,
So you mentioned this, going from this
yeah,
to, did you know there's a technology that's actually an app on your phone that uses sound waves to tell your brain what you want your brain to do? We had a young man that was on a guest on our podcast, the Mike Litton Experience, who had a traumatic brain injury. He was sleeping 3 hours a night. He's using NewCalm now and he's sleeping more. Go to newcalm.com, Mike15 promo code. Newcalm.com, promo code Mike15 for an extra 15% off. Go today.
Welcome to the Mike Litton Experience podcast. Everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. Mike is passionate about being a father, a teacher, a realtor, an investor, and a leader. And now, introducing the host of the Mike Litton Experience, Mike Litton.
Søren Thygesen, thank you so much for being our guest on the Mike
thank you.
Litton Experience. I'm super excited for our time together. And like we talked about before we hit record, everybody has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. So with your permission, we're going to start with where you were born, go all the way up to today, and then we want to talk about this novel that you wrote, and specifically how you wrote it. I love the fact that you talk about in your press release, right? That you talk about the fact that this was a whole bunch of Sunday afternoons strung together. That's really cool, man. Thanks again for being here.
So glad you'd have me, Mike. I'm here in Denmark, so a couple hours ahead of you. But yeah, basically, I was born in Copenhagen, Denmark,
Yeah.
in the outskirts of Copenhagen, and it was really a place where everybody grew up to become like lawyers or economists or doctors. But I always was this kind of creative kid, so from the get-go, I thought I'd do some creative stuff later in life.
Yeah.
And then I after leaving school, my parents set me up for like going for London for like working at a big financial company there.
Wow.
And it sort of like got me hooked, like using economy as a tool.
Mm-hmm.
So I got hooked, like trying to study that afterwards. And I thought that upon studying economy, I would also only use it as a tool,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd get to do a lot of different things. But you also learn at studies that you have these comparative advantages, and when you get a job, you only get to do that. So I didn't really, upon studying, figure out that I would only get to do like the things that I studied. So afterwards, I spent like 10 years in the government and in different private companies, working with financial analysis and mergers and acquisitions and stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that. Really exciting. But at the core, I was really just very excited about like the underlying business.
Yeah.
I more wanted to like partake in the business not be the one telling other people how to do the business.
Right.
So I considered for a long time to like start something up myself, and
Mm-hmm.
had some friends who similarly thought that they felt like trapped in this 9 to 5 job, and we sort of like spitballed with all kinds of innovative ideas, and we tried to start something that was a bit too ambitious. Maybe we tried to start like a trading platform for like pension funds where they could like swap collateral, not in a subprime kind of way, but they sometimes they needed to have like extra collateral, and when they didn't use it, they could like swap it with other pension funds, and they really loved that idea, the pension funds. But it was just like too big of a thing for two young guys to start up, and but they seemed inspired by it, and even though that it didn't become something, we got a big network out of it, and sometimes it's also just the thrill of the chase. I found out that doing these kinds of things, it expands your like your skill set, and you can apply it in different areas of your existing job.
So
And
it
then
expands your skill set, but it also expands your network, right? Because you meet a whole ton of people when you're launching something like that. You make contacts all over the world, right?
yeah, exactly. So I mean, like, that's also just like my point, that people doing this kind of thing, if you don't invest too much money in it, the worst thing that you lose is your time, and if you have a great time while doing it, I mean, like, it's there's lots of upsides in doing it. And being this creative kid, always I also considered once going for film school.
Mhm.
So before like going to university, I had also like dabbled with writing a screenplay for a
Ooh.
movie. And then after I got like my 9 to 5 jobs, and I thought I needed some sort of hobby, and I thought it would be a good personal challenge to finish this film script. Not that
Yeah.
I thought that it would ever be something, but it was just like I'd rather have like, instead of solving a Sudoku, I'd like to have like something where you can see once you finish it, you have an output, and potentially it could become something.
Yeah.
So I set the challenge for myself, because that financial trading platform, me and my friends could say to each other, it didn't become something because that person or that company didn't want to cooperate. This was like a task where you could afterwards only say that there's only one person standing in your way of not completing it, and that's yourself. So it's
Correct.
like a personal coming of age kind of thing,
Mhm.
which I think in this today's society we've lost to some extent, that this kind of personal hero's journey. Um,
So was it
of course,
about building something that was tangible that you could
yeah,
hold
yeah,
on to, right?
yeah.
That you physically had at the end?
Because I think uh, having spent so many years doing work where you can put 2 lines under and say that's the mathematical
Mhm.
result, it's it's hard getting there, but it's just very machine-like.
Mhm.
So I'd like to like express that other side of myself. So like we talked about, having one leg in something very safe and secure, 9 to 5
Mhm.
job, and then trying to have the other leg in something where you say, this is quite risky, but I don't care if it doesn't become something. It's something I do for my own sake, and I don't have to compromise to get food on the table. It's pure fun.
Gotcha.
Um, so I try to use like Sundays, every second Sunday, maybe
Mhm.
some hours here and there, and then just like have some good planning, like being good to using a notebook whenever you like do grocery shopping. If you
Mhm.
have a good idea, then just use your phone and type in a bit of notes, and then keep them sorted at all times. And then you can like accumulate through
Mhm.
the week. So when you come to that Sunday, you have already in your mind subconsciously done a lot of the work. I mean, like, research has also shown that you have a lot of background processes in your
Mhm.
mind, like your computer has.
Mhm.
So even when dreaming or stuff like that, you do tiny steps of the work And then a second part is that if you allow yourself to use the time, you can be a busy parent, you can have a busy work, but if you say this is not something that needs to be done in 2 years. I mean, I wrote this over almost 20 years, and it's not every year. It was like maybe every second year, and then I took it up again and polished it every time I was bored, when I thought it makes no sense to flip through the channels or doom scroll on your phone, because I mean, like, all those companies, they've hired some psychologists and stuff like that that try to keep you engaged as much as
Oh,
possible,
yeah.
even though that you think like, what have I used my hours on my phone?
Mhm.
So I really enjoy just leaning back and then just writing, being creative. It's almost like watching a movie, but where you're the driver yourself of the story,
Mhm.
and there's no time pressure, because you can just polish it and feel free to, yeah,
So you make up your mind that you're gonna write a book. Well,
yeah.
actually a screenplay, right? So you make up your mind you're gonna write a screenplay. And did the screenplay turn into the book, or is the screenplay separate from the book?
Actually, it was in 2022 there came a sci-fi series called Severance that was quite similar to the book I was writing, and I presented it at London Film School, and they thought it was really good before that time. But upon a similar thing showing up, I did not like get too phased about it. I simply tried to adjust, and I also think that's a good thing, whether you're writing a book, doing a business model, that you build it in modules, so that you can always adapt and try to change it a bit.
Mhm.
Yeah, I just think that if you allow the time to finish your job, your side gig, your side hustle,
Mhm.
then I think you can, yeah, be a parent and a busy worker, and then still reach your goals, just incrementally and very slow, but get there in the end. I mean, like, I just yeah, released my book on Amazon,
Yeah.
and I think we live in a golden age of startups and side
Mhm.
hustles, because I mean, like, the investment I put in this was like my time, and
Mhm.
Amazon did a great job in like supplying me with a platform, and when people buy the book, they print the book, so it's very easy, and there are a lot of different steps, and you learn a lot about. I mean, I learned a lot of like marketing,
Mhm.
and it's something that I can apply. I mean, like, today, working in the media business, work in finance, but
Mhm.
I understand the marketing department a bit better. I understand like the creatives a bit better, because I've went through it myself. So I mean, like, if the book doesn't sell, it's been a great journey, and I think a lot of people who like think that they can't do it. I mean, like, I don't know if you have the saying in the United States, but in Denmark we say, if if you have to eat an elephant, you simply have to eat it one bite at a time. Like, I mean, like, you shouldn't be like scared of like a big task. You should like compartmentalize and see tiny
Mhm.
bits, and then do it brick by brick. And then, I mean, like, I didn't feel this too overwhelming, because it was over so many years. So it's just like it slowly manifested, and you see the fruit of your labor at the end of the day. So I'd really encourage people like to like turn their hobby into something that they could, if they have the same kind of drive as I do to produce something, then I think it's possible. Also, like with I mean, like, now that I've written the book, I've also
Mhm.
like talked to a friend about doing like different apps. Now there are like something called lovable.dev, where you can type in your app ID and it does the programming for you. So you can get the core programming, and you can, I mean, like, there's no barrier, I think, between you and your realization of your great idea today.
So can I ask you a couple of questions? Because
Yeah, of
I'm
course.
I'm like dying to ask you. So when you wrote that screenplay, you presented it to the Film Institute, right? And and then a similar one showed up. Did you feel
No,
like that was your idea somebody had co-opted?
no. I wrote the core of it in 2013, and then for fun, I tried presenting it at London Film School amongst film industry professionals. I was not a film industry professional at that time, but they still allowed me in because I signed up for that course instead of the non-professionals. So it's just like 8 people, where it was like a guy who did the CGI on Game of Thrones, and someone who did the music on another famous movie. So it's not people; it was people similar to me who wanted to do something different. They were already in the industry, but they were all dying to become like script writers. And then I presented the idea there, and they loved it, and that sort of like made me consider finishing it. And then I turned to like finance, and I did it very slowly. And then a somewhat similar series came out, but that was in the United States, and I have no reason to believe that it was anyone who like were inspired by my story or anything. But these things happen, and but I also talked to a lot of people about it, and they were just like, these things happen. You should just like make it your own, and that's of course a risk with making it take so long, because good ideas, I mean, like if it is a good idea, it will get taken or used by others eventually. So that's a risk. I mean, like spending a lot of time to finalize it. But I mean, like if you can build it, like it's. I mean, like now I'm trying to do apps for fun in my spare time with a friend, and we're just like building it in modules, so that if something similar comes out, we can just use the core module of that app and then just adapt it. So it's just like, if you make that vehicle towards success changeable, then you can always like, and if you're somewhat creative, you can always just like move the bricks. I mean, like this book of mine, I might, if it turns out that the similarities are too much, I can simply change the setting a bit, and the underlying story is completely different as far as I'm aware. So I think that if you have that ability to like change things a bit, then I don't think that the time issue that comes from only using every second Sunday is an issue.
So when you saw the similarity, how did you feel?
Very disheartened. I mean, like there was a friend of mine who saw the TV series, and he said, "Oh, have you seen that TV series? It's quite like yours." And I was just like gut-wrenched. But then I turned the screenplay into a novel, and then thought, I'm still committing to finalizing my product and getting it out there, because again, for the thrill of the chase. But yeah, then I turned it into a novel in a different format, and I think that's also like an ability that people and I should have in any aspects of life. Like change is the only constant, and there are all these obstacles, and you have to like adapt your things all the time. So
well, I think there's also a running theme with this podcast. Okay. And it's that the people we have on are accomplished. They've accomplished something, right? And some people have accomplished a lot of things. What's interesting though, is in their life stories, they've had situations where the world said no, right? Where they went to, they slammed the door in their face, they said no to them, whatever, but they figured out a way to turn it into a yes. And I think the way to look at this is, you had this idea, you presented the idea, then this thing shows up that's similar to your idea, not exactly, but it's similar, right? And you're disheartened, almost like the world's telling you no, but instead of taking no for an answer, you just decided to turn it into a novel, do it a little bit different, and launch it, right? That's the kind of thing that's sort of this running theme, is people don't quit, right? The people that accomplish great things in life, they don't quit. They just figure out a way to turn a no into a yes, right?
Yeah. And then sort of like to mitigate, people saying that, oh, you ripped this off and this off. I had London Film School kindly sign in the appendix the original thing I presented in 2013, so that people can see, oh, you not that it should be an issue, but I mean, like, I think it's always good to like not be disheartened by things, but try to like just see how I find a way out of this, and
just pivot, right? That's what you did. You just pivoted, right? Yeah, you were disappointed. Like you said, to use your words, you were disheartened, but you figured out a way to turn a no into a yes. And I think that's the biggest part of all this in terms of your story and your triumph, right? You championed this thing. So,
Yeah.
can you mind if I ask you a few questions about your life
Of
story?
course. Yeah.
So, what was your favorite thing about growing up in Denmark, in Copenhagen?
I mean, like it's very spacious, and at the same time, people know each other very, very well. I mean, like I've been to the States a lot of times as well. It's very big. I mean, like sometimes when you have to visit a grandparent, you drive far away. I mean, like those distances we drive in Denmark. I mean, like 1 hour drive is like whew, it's very much for like a day to drive that much.
Yeah.
So I mean, like there's a great sense of community, I think, and but one of the things I really enjoyed while growing up was like the American culture. I mean,
Mhm.
the impact from you guys in Denmark as well. I mean, like the impact from George Lucas and like yeah, Stephen King and yeah, Steven Spielberg. I mean, like while my parents are my parents, I mean, they're like the parents of my imagination. I mean, like it's so inspiring, and that's kind of the thing that I aspire to myself,
Mhm.
that you give some people some dreams or make them think or something. That's I think that's that nostalgia vibe from my childhood. That's a very fond memory.
That's
Um,
awesome. So, growing up, who was the most influential person to you?
I think it's George Lucas. I'm a massive Star Wars
Yeah.
fan, so I think
Yeah.
that his ability to like uh be very adult and technological, but at the
Mhm.
same time with the mind of a child. I mean, like those AT-AT walkers, which it's very
Mhm.
technical, but it's something that a child would think of. It's like this dreamscape. I think that's this escapism. I think that's it's a person I really yeah, look up to.
So, you're familiar with Pixar.
Yeah.
Did you know that George Lucas started Pixar?
No, I didn't know that.
So, if you ever get a chance, there's a book by Walter Isaacson about Steve. It's a biography on Steve Jobs. And if you ever get a
Yeah.
chance, you should read it because he talks about the fact that George Lucas got in a place where he needed to offload Pixar and he sold it to Steve Jobs. Kind of cool. So yeah,
Yeah,
so
it's
Pixar
kind of cool.
Pixar was literally founded by George Lucas. It's kind of cool. So okay, so but and by the way, I'm a huge Walter Isaacson fan, and I highly recommend his like the Elon Musk biography is just awesome.
Yeah.
So is the Steve Jobs. Right, everything Walter Isaacson does, I think, is just
Yeah,
amazing.
and Elon Musk as well. I mean, like that's also a person. I mean, you can say about him what you want, but I mean, like the commitment from seeing a rocket blow up
Yeah,
a number of times. I mean, like if I
yeah,
had that amount of money and I saw my rocket blow up, I'd just like I'll call it quits. But he just like keep going, and I think that's
yeah.
really
Did you know there's an app that has no side effects that allows you to use sound waves to tell your brain what you want it to do? It's called newcalm.com and it's amazing. It literally uses sound waves. If you want to tell your brain to go to sleep, if you want to tell your brain to recover, if you want to tell your brain to put you in peak physical state, if you want to tell your brain to focus, if you want to tell your brain to take a power nap, you can do all of these things and more with newcalm.com. Go to newcalm.com today, promo code Mike15. Newcalm.com, promo code Mike15 for an extra 15% off. Go there today.
fundamental for like
Yeah, if
getting.
you get a chance to read that book by Walter Isaacson, I highly recommend that one too. I mean, it's a ride, man. It's an absolute ride, it and you find out what makes him tick. You find out how he operates, and he doesn't operate like anybody else, right? He doesn't do things like you think normal corporate America does. This guy just figures out a way to make it happen, and it's awesome, just absolutely awesome. And he thinks outside the box all the time. Like he's not,
Yeah.
it's not, he's almost never inside the box. So, so I get that feeling about you, by the way. So in high school, did you have a favorite subject?
Yeah, it was English and it was arts. I also had physics, A-level physics, and I also had it was a math class, but it was funny because I took the math route, but I sort of like took some electives in the art as well, and it was really a huge passion of mine. I've always been drawing a lot, and so it's nice to like be able to do that in your spare time, and I think and as I said, I think it's a golden age for like people who want to start something in their spare time, to do that. I mean, there's so many great sites at the moment trying to like push people forward. So
that's really cool. So did you have a favorite teacher in high school?
I think it was my English teacher. She was really supportive, and I think it's something that a lot of people, I think they underestimate how much a teacher means, because I mean, like in ground school, there's a teacher who's like he was quite funny, but he was also a bit annoying. He if someone did something, he could for fun write stupid in their foreheads. It's just, it wouldn't go today, but it's just like a lot of people hated math because of that teacher, and it's something that sticks with you through life. Whereas like the English teacher, very encouraging, like trying to find the positives and trying to nurture those things, and that's just something that sticks with you. And that's also something that, I mean, I've not had too much leadership responsibility at my job, but I mean, whenever I do, I try to like find out what people are good at, because and play each other good. That's I think that's really
important, man. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
So after high school, where did you go?
After high school, I my parents knew one of the CEOs at one of Denmark's biggest pharmaceutical companies, and he asked my sister when she was done, "Where do you want to go?" She wanted to go to Paris, and he got her job in Paris. I wanted to go to London. So it was a bit nepotism. It was a bit. I didn't feel hard earned that I got into that job, but it was nice to be in London, and that was where I learned to appreciate the tool that is like finance, and I still think it's a hugely valuable tool, in also in the entrepreneurial sense, that you can use it for, like, I mean, like with my book, like doing all the budgeting, and so that made me appreciate taking a university degree, and then you learned all sorts of like CAP-M and different theories where in real life they may not apply, but still in retrospect I see that the way that we try to learn taught us how to learn, and be analytical, and I use that a lot. Even if I move away from finance, that analytical mindset is something that seems like a good partner for my creative mindset in like making my dreams come true.
So what university did you attend? Did you attend university in London?
No, I came back to Denmark. So it was just one gap year in London.
Okay.
Well, it's a usual thing you do in Denmark whenever you leave high school, you take this gap year. Some people go traveling to the Philippines, and the whole self-discovery kind of thing.
Across Europe, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I also think it's a valuable year because I don't think that at least the Danish society or ourselves at that age are good enough at like trying to find out what's our core ability. Because I mean, there's that whole Japanese ikigai, that the Venn diagram where the best place to be is like where four circles align, where what are you good at, what can you get paid for, what do you love to do, and what does society demand. If you can find the sweet spot where all those apply, then theory says that you have found yourself your niche spot. And I mean, like, I was just like, finance seems fun, and then the people hiring say, yeah, you've read finance, so we hire you. But that whole thing with discovering what your true ability, what your best ability is, because I mean, like, for all you knew, you could be like a world champion in figure skating if you've never tried it. I mean, like, so it's and that's also the thing with this book. I mean, like, people, I encourage people to try to do the things they love and see if they're good at it, because it might be that they have like a massive underappreciated talent within themselves
Yeah.
that
True.
that some people need to see. And I think you see the X Factor thing, the Americans Got Talent. It's nice to see that the people get discovered, but it's also nice to see that now. I mean, you can say what you want about AI, but now you have a ton of resources that are able to like scout and see automatically if so. I mean, like your podcast as well. I mean, like it may not be everyone who finds it, but I mean, like through AI. I mean, a year from now, when someone describes their preferences, some AI stuff might say you should listen to the Mike Litton Experience. It's right down your alley. I mean, like so I think we live in a golden age where if you have talent, yeah, I think it will get discovered, and you should at least try to owe it to yourself to to give it a go. I mean,
totally agree. So where exactly did you go to university?
oh, it was Copenhagen Business School.
Oh, okay. And you studied finance?
I studied finance. I did the bachelor degree in economics and business administration, and then I took a master's degree in economics and business administration,
Wow.
one called finance and accounting. So you do a lot of different corporate finance and financial analysis type of things.
That's cool, man.
And then
So what's the single most important thing you learned in both the bachelor's and master's degree programs?
I think I want to say it's the skill set of learning something very quickly under pressure, because it was a study where you had a lot of cases and you had to deliver fast to imitate real life corporate situations.
That's cool that they
that
do
skill
that.
set, and then of course also like the accounting rules and principles, and then we have a lot of corporate finance theories. But when you get into real life, you know that you learn that they work somewhat, but they're not completely efficient at doing it in real life. But then of course some of them are used. Like I've done some financial due diligence when the media company I'm in have purchased another company, and so. But all in all, I think I've used 10% of the things I've learned in university, and the rest is sort of like something, an ability you acquire and learn while you're at the job.
Gotcha. So the name of the book is Burning Bright.
Yeah.
It's a novel.
It's a novel, yeah.
So let's talk about it for just a second. Tell us what the story is, right? And what's the number one thing that you learned writing the book?
I mean, the process for me was to write from three different perspectives. So you have these three characters who at the start are somewhat similar, but from my interest also in psychology, I also had that as an elective in high school. You have like the id, which is like your core motivations and drive and the animalistic kind of side of you, and then you have like the ego that sort of like processes everything and tries to connect the different sides and your mask to the real life, and then you have the super ego, which is like the parent figure within you that says you have to do this and this and moral and ethics. So I wanted to like make those into characters, and then I like devised this setting where you have they work at this lab where there are these lights that have a primary purpose similar to the Severance series, to try to like make them not remember when they leave the lab, but when they enter the lab, their memories are extracted. But in the process, all other memories in the deep subconscious are also like slowly and not intentionally extracted as well. So they progressively become extreme versions of themselves. And then we see from their different perspectives as they evolve. And then the point is to find yourself in that spectrum. Like, I mean, can I still follow that person or that person? And they sort of like move away from each other. And the reader has to like come to terms with at one point, okay, now that guy is completely crazy, or where do I find myself in those situations? and being a lab where no one can remember afterwards, it also means that there are no like consequences, and those the avoidance of facing the bad conscience afterwards make them also become like their true selves,
Mm-hmm.
and they sort of like have to find out who they truly are, and and I think it's what I learned from writing that is it's like know how you sharpen your knife
Mm-hmm.
when you have to use it. I think like you train your empathy in reading and in writing and trying to
Mm-hmm.
see different perspectives, and I think that's that's a good process to be in, because you have this person where you say, I don't agree with that person, but I have to take that person's perspective
Mm-hmm.
and that person's perspective. So, and that's something that I also enjoy doing in like negotiations at work. I mean, like that you try to find the other person's perspective, so you might not agree with the person, but if you know what the person's motivations are and why they're saying it that way, then it's sort of like gets easier to like get them from like being this person to
Mm-hmm.
like make them open up and find agreements. So I think besides being a book, it's also been a journey, like a personal journey,
Mm-hmm.
where you like confront those different sides of yourself. You put yourself in that situation. So I think it's been a cool experience, and I really hope other people would do the same. If it's just a short story, I also did a short story on my homepage, which I actually wrote in high school, and I just put it up there as a teaser.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, but I guess it's all about people finding their passion, and if there's something you're passionate about, I can really like yeah, I enjoy it a lot more than just sitting doing analysis. And I mean, it gets bread on the table, and work is not charity, but figuring out a way to get closer to your true passions. I think that's something a lot of people owe to themselves, because I mean, like I work 8 hours a day, and it's more time that than you use with your family and your
Mm-hmm.
friends. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
like it's a big chunk
True.
of your life. So you owe it to yourself that it's something that you think is nice.
So, what's the number one thing, as the author and creator of this book, what's the number one thing you want the reader to take away once they've finished the book?
It's that everybody has a different perspective and a reason for being the person that they are. That there's like a root cause for their bad sides and their good sides, if you want to frame it like that, and that every ability and inability in some regards can be a tool in the right situation. I mean, like you have different ways of looking at things, and different approaches to those things that I think are warranted in different situations. So it's not always that, oh, you should always act this way, but maybe in a different situation you need this kind of person and this
Mm-hmm.
kind of attitude. And so I think, yeah, broad perspective on things.
So are you talking about people having empathy for each other? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, exactly. I think of course there's you have to put your foot down and
Mm-hmm.
make your intentions clear. And but I think, yeah, I think if you understand each other, um, you might not always agree, and you might find out that you don't agree, and you have to take some sort of confrontation. But I think that a lot of things will go more smoothly if
Mm-hmm.
you understand other people and can see it from their perspective. Um,
So you mentioned this going from this
yeah,
to right.
yeah,
So
exactly.
can you talk about that for a second? So
Yeah,
it sounds like you're taking somebody who's closed off and guarded, right? They're
yeah.
right. If am I understanding correctly,
That
right? And
it's exactly correctly, because there's this
and you're kind
magician
of
quote.
drawing them out, right? You're sort
Yeah,
of figuring out a way to get them to tell you where they're coming from.
exactly.
So
I
we're
mean,
talking
there's
about the power of questions, right?
yeah, there's this I don't know if he's famous in the US, but there's this British magician called Darren Brown. He's also a mentalist, and there's one show where he had to make a person. The person didn't see this, but he had in his earplug. He had to make the person do this, and all he had to say, he had to ask the person about his parents, and then he did this. So it's when you get too personal with people, or it's just like an insecure stance that people have when it gets too close, and I see it often at my work where I've also done like controlling visits where I do internal audit in the media company, going to different under companies that report to the group.
So subsidiaries.
Yeah, subsidiaries, exactly.
Okay.
And I always try to make it appear like we're trying to play each other good, and we're trying to optimize, where some may see like it's internal audit. You're coming here to find problems and report to the top CEO, and then throw us under the bus. And there's some of those controller types that think that way and want to like get as many red flags as possible for that report. But I always try to like say, hey, I'm trying to make it good here. We're trying to optimize. And it seemed like when we took that approach, they became much more open, engaging, and they said a lot of things that made it transparent what it was they were doing, as opposed to other people who took a different course of action, where you could see the reports were quite critical. So it addressed a lot of the things, but they didn't really get to hear the core problems, because the people they're interviewing were just like this. They're trying to like shield, and they didn't really express the things that the controllers didn't discover themselves. It was always everything's perfect until they discovered a few things, and then those became the red flags. But it's just like that kind of transparency. I think, that openness, I think it goes a long way.
So
that's just my
think,
personal approach.
So do you think that's a fear of criticism, like a fear of being wrong, or a fear of you know what I'm saying? Is that what you're thinking?
On my part or their part, or?
Well, on their part, like it sounds like like if you're coming in to audit them, right, and they're doing this, right? Yeah, it sounds like they're fearful.
It is. I mean, like if you have a direct line to the top CEO, and you write something about them, then it goes all the way to the top. I mean, like that's maybe, I don't know their bonus schemes, but it's something that they can impact them in some ways. I mean, so yeah, I think it goes a long way to like train that kind of empathy, and it goes a long way, I think, also in take something like hostage negotiations. So this guy who wrote this book, Never Split the Difference, he also has
I just finished it for the 10th time or 11th time. I think it's 11. I've read it 11 times.
I also love his masterclass, which is also about, when you talk to someone about a problem, try not seeing each other as a problem, but try seeing the problem as a problem, teaming up against the problem. It's just so solution oriented, and I'm a big fan of that. And I think
I'm too.
So
big Chris Voss fan.
It's for your own personal gain. I think it's a good skill to have, and I think both reading and writing and trying to get under the skin of different characters. I think it's a great area of doing that. I mean, like back in the day, we might see a saber-toothed tiger, and we get the adrenaline and train our whole fight system, but we don't really have that anymore. So we need
it's called your amygdala.
We need that kind of, a fix for that. And I think fiction, and whether it's horror or something, it's sort of like it sharpens your knife again. It keeps your I think it has a good purpose despite it just being fiction. But
the thing I find fascinating about Never Split the Difference is he goes into, in his book, he goes into the history of hostage negotiation with the FBI, right? And he talks about sort of some of the not so good memories, like some of the things that have happened where they were really bloody outcomes, and Congress got involved and said, hey, you need to figure this out. And so they ended up ended up changing their approach. So instead of going in and just talking at people and trying to pigeonhole them and make them fearful, right, of the big bad FBI, they went in and started asking questions. Like the biggest pivot that they made in the 70s was they started getting curious and they started asking people about them, right? Which is precisely what we do in this podcast, right? We ask people about them. We ask you about you, right? Yeah. And what's interesting about it is I feel like it's a lesson that people can learn about human communication. Like leaders spend way too much time, I believe, talking at people. So do parents. Okay. Parents talk at their kids incessantly when really what the kid needs and what the people need that are working for leadership, what they're looking for leadership, what they need is they need somebody to come in and say, can I ask you a question?
Yeah. True.
What's your take, right? What are you thinking? How is this affecting you? What do you think we need to do next? You with me?
Yeah.
And
true.
Doing that to people that are implementing that with people that have always been ordered around or always been talked to a certain way, they look at you like you're from Mars, right? Like you're speaking a foreign language or something. But what happens is once they realize that you're authentic and you really do care about getting to know more about them, they relax, man. I've seen it a lot, right? I'm actually writing a book about it, about the power of questions and how they're the bedrock of human communication. A lot of the material that we're going to be using in the book came from these close to 300 episodes. I mean, you're episode 295, right? They're coming from these episodes. They're coming from the interactions that we've had with people regarding them and regarding their life story and their family and their companies. And you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's
and
so cool.
I feel like it's something that we can teach leadership, and we can also teach parents. And parents, parenting is sacred leadership in my book, right? Yeah. It's being a leader, but it's a sacred level leader, right? And I feel like we can have an impact on the world by getting people to realize that instead of walking into a room, if you're a leader and going, okay, I want this, and this done yesterday, right? By yesterday, right? You walk into the room and you go, you know what? You're our expert. You're the person on the line. If we want to go from here to here, how do we get there?
Yeah.
What do you think is the best way to get there, right? And let them tell you what the plan is, okay? And then ask them, how soon do you think we can get there? You with me? Now all of a sudden it's their plan. They're now engaged, right?
Yeah.
Versus you walking in and going top down, right? Best thing you can do as a leader is go sit with your people and ask them about them. You with me?
Exactly, yeah.
Take notes. If you're sitting with somebody that works for you, as you're their leader, you're sitting with somebody that works for you and they're telling you about that, you're asking them questions, they're telling you about them, and you're taking notes, you validate them.
Yeah, true.
It's that simple, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm going to get off my soapbox, but I do believe, I'm a big believer, obviously, in the power of questions, right? So I have one last question for you. When's the next book coming out?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I'll see how this goes, and then if it goes all right, I'll write something.
You're going to write another one.
Yeah.
You are. Yeah. I can tell it. I can see it in your eyes.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's the thing. You're more than welcome to come back on when you finish the next book and you're ready to release it. Come back on and we'll promote it with you. Okay.
Cool. I appreciate it.
Thanks for being our guest on the Mike Litton Experience, bud.
Yeah. Thank you. Cheers, man.
This has been fun.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question? Did you know that there's a technology that uses sound waves that'll tell your brain what to do? There literally is. It's called newcalm.com. It can tell your brain to heal, tell your brain to sleep, tell your brain to do all kinds of things. It can get you fired up. It can be a pre-workout. Newcalm.com. And the promo code is Mike15. Newcalm.com, promo code Mike15 for an extra 15% off. Go today.
And that's a wrap. Another episode of the Mike Litton Experience in the books. Reach out to Mike on Instagram at the Mike Litton Experience.